All right, hello and welcome everybody to a slightly delayed broadcast of the GPVWC Superleague Lights Round 10, the French Grand Prix here at the circuit Magny-Cours. And I am your sole commentator for the day. Sadly, Ewan is unable to join me, but my name is Jacob Hancox, and I will do my best to give you guys the best experience you can possibly have of this race we have here today. Qualifying has already been completed, and in a moment we'll be able to run you through all of the grid order and all that sort of thing. But I can give a little spoiler to you. Matthew Williams, our current championship leader, did not perform as well as he usually does in qualifying. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch out for as we go forwards into the race. Unfortunately, though, for those of us wanting a tight championship battle, Alessandro Quintai is not racing today and therefore cannot take advantage of Williams having a slightly off qualifying. So it's going to be up to the likes of Sandeep Singh and Michael Ayers in third and fourth in the standings to try and do anything about it. The warm-up is now just coming to its conclusion. And at the end of the warm-up, we have Thomas Harvey sitting at the top of the order with Deegan Fairclough, then Mathieu Kiersmakers. And then you have the two poles, the two PLS drivers, Dabrowski and Zubinski, the double Mateuses in fourth and fifth with Matthew Williams looking much stronger in the warm-up than he did in qualifying, up in sixth there, and I believe on a different compounded tyres, a medium tyre, whereas everyone else in that top six was on the softs. So it might well be that when it comes to race pace in the opening stint, Williams is feeling a little bit more confident than the qualifying results would display. Formation lap should be getting underway any moment now, and once that does happen, we'll be able to start bringing you the grid order. The weather nice and clear, nice and sunny here in Magny-Cours, so we don't have to worry about any rain, at least not off the start line. And once I have the concrete information, I'll be able to let you know which tyres everyone is running as well for the start of this race. One thing to note is that Deegan Fairclough, going into this race, did get a 10-place grid penalty. And unfortunately for Deegan, he actually managed to qualify. Well, I suppose it's actually quite fortunate, really. But he qualified up in second. And so that's kind of gutting for him. He now finds himself all the way down in 12th instead. And yeah, that's going to be a little bit of a difficult one then for Fairclough to try and overcome. But he's shown both in that qualifying session and in the warm-up, second in both of them. He definitely has a lot of pace around here in that V12 Crossfire car. Drivers are now underway then on the formation lap. And as you can see, it is Mathieu Kiersmakers there in the Zederik who is lining up in pole position with Thomas Harvey being promoted to be alongside. Then we have Tom Stevens and Pascal Schmidt, excellent qualifying from Pascal Schmidt. And now Dara Tapper and Jukka Lalu on row 3. Dino Paolini just follows his teammate in 7th, with Michael Ayers, the highest placed championship runner inside the top 10, in 8th. Luke Maguire returning for Revo in 9th, with Amari Watson in his second race for 86 Racing in 10th. And we have Dabrowski and Deegan Fairclough, who got demoted. Dylan Platt, 13th. Matthew Williams all the way down in 14th, the lead Stax car. Matthias Zubinski looked good in the warm-up, but is only 15th. Ivan Leonov, 16th. Jack Mayer in the second Stax, down in 17th position. Frank Hamming, 18th. Sandeep Singh, not able to take advantage of Matthew Williams. He's down in 19th, just ahead of Hygo Poom, who sits 20th. Then you have the two HG Esports Blue Bolt cars, Stefano Zanrosso making his first appearance of the season alongside Giuseppe Saracino. Then you have Yanis Volborn and James Lambert for Cosmo Powerworks, followed by Pascal Polenz, Sean Jones, Mike Bell, and Adam Rainey at the back of the grid in 28th position in the second V12 Crossfire car. A couple of teams only running one car here today. I believe that's going to be Neptune Sim Racing, with only Mike Bell participating for them, and Pescara have not been able to get a replacement for Alessandro Quintai, so it is just going to be Sandeep Singh flying the flag for the Pescara team, the team which currently sits top of the constructors standings. But good news for them, if Stax have as bad a weekend as it seems like it's going to be, maybe neither team is going to score any points, and maybe Royal Blue Racing at 8-6, the teams in third and fourth, will be able to steal a march on them. As now we can see the drivers just getting ready to line up on the grid as they reach the end, or the latter half, of their formation lap. The newest part of the track that they are just about to go into here, the Lycée Complex, turns 15, 16, and 17. On board here with Adam Rainey giving us a nice little tour. That was 15. This here is 16. This tricky little chicane at the end here, 17. And then into his grid slot in 28th on the back row of the grid. Here's the front though, and it's Matteo Kiersmakers taking pole with Thomas Harvey alongside. Big chance that we'll see a new race winner in this season, and the lights are off and we are underway, and it looks like a pretty clean start there for all of the front three. Matteo Kiersmakers comfortably still in the lead, Thomas Harvey pretty close behind him, and then Tom Stevens. Pascal Schmidt looks like he's under a little bit of pressure further behind. Is that Jukka-Pekka Laulu maybe going for him there? And the cars continuing, all looks pretty clean. One car slightly on the gravel in the backside, but that's not going to worry them too much. As now it's Kiersmakers from Harvey, then Stevens, and then we have a couple of cars battling here. That's Harvey looking to try go around the outside in the TR Bluvos car, and he's just about keeping his nose still in there with Matteo Kiersmakers, the Belgian, forced to give the Englishman room, but oh no, that's Matteo Kiersmakers completely into the wall. It didn't look like the cars touched him, but they must have done for Matteo to go off-road that dramatically. Thomas Harvey has just about got away with it, but he did lose positions to Tom Stevens, who now finds himself in first position for HM Engineering, and I believe what is his first race of the season for the team. So what a position to find himself in, and that is such bad news for Matteo Kiersmakers, 6th in the championship. Surely he thought a race win was a big opportunity here, but I believe, and yet he is completely out of the race, slammed into the wall back there. Here is Frank Hamming in the second of the HM Engineering cars as they get to the end of their first lap of racing. Hamming currently occupying 16th position, just ahead of Matthias Zubinski. Inside the top 10, only Ivan Leonov is currently on medium tyres. He's had a good start. He's up in a 10th. Then you have Williams, Platt, Volborn, Hamming, Poom, Poland, Sting, Saracino, Lambert, Rainey, Jones, Bell, and Mayer, all on those medium tyres. Incidentally, Jack Mayer has found himself down all the way to 27th. I believe he started 17th on the grid, so a bit of a disastrous start. It might have been him that we saw in the gravel on the exit of the second corner of the race. Meanwhile, though, back at the front, it's Tom Stevens, who now calmly leads the way from his sort of namesake, Thomas Harvey. Pascal Schmidt doing a fantastic job for TTF Racing, both in qualifying and thus far in the race as well. He's occupying third. And there you can see Thomas Harvey really close behind Stevens at the moment here, really looking to harass the rear end of that HM Engineering car. And maybe not harass it quite as much as whatever happened between himself and Kiersmakers. I couldn't really call that incident because it didn't look like necessarily I got a very clear perspective of what happened there, as Tom Stevens does set the fastest lap of the race so far as he enters the third lap of this 57-lap contest here at Magny-Cours. Intriguingly, both of the top runners starting to gap Pascal Schmidt there in third. Michael Ayers in fourth. He'll be quite keen to get past Pascal Schmidt. Qualified behind the German, but you've got to imagine that Ayers, a driver who has won multiple races so far this season, he's going to be pretty keen to start making progress. Here's Ivan Leonov into the Adelaide hairpin here, sending one up the inside of Jukka-Pekka Laulu, who's had a relatively poor start. Both Royal Blue cars losing positions in the first few laps, and Ivan Leonov getting past both of those cars. And he now finds himself in ninth. The Bulgarian, and now he's off. He's offered into the barrier in an alarmingly similar way to what we saw from Matteo Kiersmakers. And I was about to say Ivan Leonov, the Bulgarian, having a fantastic race so far. And that is a bit of a disaster. There was Jukka-Pekka Laulu as well off the road. He just sort of caught a glimpse of the blue car there, that Royal Blue Racing. There is Jukka-Pekka Laulu. So the Finns race has also seemingly come to its conclusion. Dramatic stuff in this opening laps of the race. Leonov just trying to nurse this one back to the pits now without any front wing to speak of. Seems like he might have more damage than that as well. The engine was smoking a little bit there. Here's Deegan Fairclough. He's made a fantastic start. Of course, had to start on those soft tyres, despite being put down into 12th on the grid after he qualified in second. But he is already up 5 full positions into 7th. He's right with the likes of Luke Maguire and Dower Tapper right now, so he can look to continue to make some progress. Not the easiest track to overtake on, of course, but we have seen, as Leonov showed us last lap before that horrendous incident a few corners after, it is possible to make overtakes into the Adelaide hairpin. But people have to be careful through the Nürburgring chicane. I believe that's where both of these cars, both Kiersmakers and then Leonov, that's where they found themselves in the wall. Just a quick note, Leonov and Lalu have both retired now from the race as well. So it's a really, really big shame, actually, for those drivers. Lalu would have been looking for some big points here as well today, currently sitting 5th in the championship, but threatening to lose out on a couple of positions with a DNF like this one. Here then is Dylan Platt in the TR Blue Voss Motorsports car. I can't remember exactly where Dylan started, but I think basically in the same sort of position, somewhere outside the top 10, is running those medium tyres. He's currently behind Matthew Williams, who has also made some progress, definitely helped by the fact that a few other drivers have had some misfortunes, but he's made a fair few overtakes of his own as well. He's now in 10th position, and on those medium tyres, he is now the lead runner on that yellow-walled set of tyres, thanks to the demise of Ivan Leonov. Here is Dabrowski in a bit of a battle. Is that Janis Volborn looking to go up the inside in the Razor? Yes, it is. Volborn getting the inside line for the Adelaide hairpin and getting better traction on the exit as well. And that move easy as you like in the end for the German. The Polish driver forced to settle in behind as they both try and navigate their way through the tricky Nürburgring chicane. Janis Volborn on mediums. Matthias Dabrowski, interestingly enough, on soft tyres. So perhaps the mediums already starting to get a bit of an edge on some of those soft tyres. Dabrowski evidently not able to make them work in the way that he would like in that PLS Hyperion Esports car. Front two look close as ever right now. That's Stevens and Harvey. It's consistently been just over half a second separating the two of them. Last time around, Harvey set the fastest first sector of the race so far. That's a 22.9. And here is Michael Ayers, still just kind of tight up there behind Pascal Schmidt. You've got to imagine, and looking how close he is behind Pascal Schmidt, you have to feel that Michael Ayers would be able to start to run away from Schmidt if he was able to get past. And now we're going to find out that exactly as he sends the move. But it's a lovely switch back there from the TTF of Pascal Schmidt, forcing Ayers to give him some space here as the battle will continue. Be careful, lads, and they are careful. And Michael Ayers is the one to take the position in the end. Pascal Schmidt forced to give in his attempts to hold on to third place, and now he might find himself under a little bit of pressure from Douwe Tapper just behind, who now is the only Zederek remaining in this race. Pascal Schmidt holds on for the time being as they head towards the end of this lap. Now, it's going to be important to watch Michael Ayers here, because he, currently third position, has now the free air with which to try and close down our leading pair of drivers. And I got to say, if you're Tom Stevens and Thomas Harvey, that's a daunting prospect because, as I mentioned earlier, Michael Ayers, he's won multiple races so far this season. He's won 2 of them, in fact. He won a couple of races ago. He came second at the last time out in Germany. He's a very, very quick driver and definitely one of the highest caliber we have here in the Superleague Lights. And he will be desperately wanting to get as many points as he can over and above Matthew Williams as well. He'll have seen Williams' poor qualifying, and he'll know that's a big opportunity for him. Further down is Matthias Zubinski, who is on soft tyres right now, trying to get around the outside of Frank Hanning into Adelaide, and he manages to do so easy on the traction as well. Those soft tyres working a bit better on his car than perhaps they are on his teammates. Meanwhile, here are Pascal Polens and Sandeep Singh. Sandeep Singh thus far has only made up 1 position off the start line, and when you think that 3 cars ahead of him have DNF'd, that means he's actually lost out 2 positions, so not a good start for Sandeep Singh in the lone Pescara. Close stuff here with Deegan Fairclough in the middle of the pack. Currently still in 7th position. Has been there for a little while now, and you can see just how close he's able to get to the rear end of the Revo of Luke Maguire. The Irishman doing his best to hold off Fairclough for the time being. And you've got to imagine it's going to be a little bit frustrating now for Deegan Fairclough, being in this sort of situation. It's a similar situation to what Ayers has been in up until this last couple of laps, when he was able to get past Pascal Schmidt. And of course, driving in this train as Deegan Fairclough now sends it very deep up the inside there. That was committed from Deegan Fairclough. No core to give by either driver as the battle will continue. They bang wheels on the run towards the Nürburgring chicane, but in the end, Luke Maguire is forced to back out of that one. Fairclough had his nose ahead going into the braking zone, and he will take that position away. Good for him that he's making some sort of progress. In fact, it seems that Luke Maguire has spun out as a result of that. I didn't quite catch exactly what happened, and you see he's struggling to rejoin the race. He's having to let so many cars through, and now down in 19th position, just ahead of some of the drivers who have fallen by the wayside so far in this race, the likes of Adam Rainey, Stefano Zanrosso, Sean Jones, Mike Bell, James Lambert, and Jack Mayer, who I think have all had to make pit stops so far in this race. They're all well off the back of the remainder of the field. Back up at the front, though, here is Thomas Harvey with Tom Stevens. And I told you to watch the gap between Michael Ayres and the front two drivers. It hasn't come down. In fact, it's only gone up since Ayres got past Pascal Schmidt. It just seems to me like Tom Stevens and Thomas Harvey are just looking like the class of the field right now. 0.3 of a second now between those two, so it's very, very close stuff. Here we cut to the PLS Hyperion cars. Oh! Wow, major lag moment there for the Razor. That's going to be Yannis Volborn. Or, sorry, no, that's Pascal Polenz, I think, who's now falling down the order. Not sure what happened there. That must have been a very scary moment for the drivers, but it does seem like everyone was able to get through that basically unscathed. And yeah, that's Yannis Volborn, who's now DNFing from the race. Oh, that's a disaster for him. He's had a rough run of races recently. He had 2 podiums so far this season, but his last 3 races before this one, 14th, 22nd, and 13th, and now a DNF on top of it as well, seemingly due to no fault of his own, but some kind of internet issue, and that will not do the Razor team any favors whatsoever in the morale department. Harvey still close with Tom Stevens out at the front. You have the DRS wide open here as you run down towards turn 5, and this is an opportunity. Not enough of an opportunity for Thomas Harvey. Got really close there to the rear wing of Tom Stevens. Further back, that's Dower Tapper trying to go for the move on Pascal Schmidt. He's going to have to outdrag him on the exit, but he's not able to do so. Switching back, looking for the inside line, but he cannot get alongside into the Nürburgring chicane. He's stuck still in 5th position, with Deegan Fairclough chomping at the bit just behind him as well. Michael Ayres, since he got past Pascal Schmidt, has indeed been able to gap the German driver. But the gap between Ayres and the front two, it's more or less stayed the same, maybe got a little bit bigger. It's currently sitting at pretty much about 2.5 seconds between Ayres and Thomas Harvey. It was less than that when he got past Pascal Schmidt, just by a couple of tenths or so. But it does seem to me that Ayres, while he has better pace than everyone behind him, maybe with the exception of Deegan Fairclough, he doesn't quite have the pace of those front two runners. Yellow's in Sector 2, and I noticed that Adam Rainey is dropping down the order here. Not sure what has happened, but I believe that's going to be a DNF there for Adam Rainey in the second V12 Crossfire. So another one bites the dust. Already 4 cars gone from this race. 5, actually. No, sorry, counting Yannis Volborn, of course. And a couple others who have had some issues at the beginning of this race. The likes of Luke Maguire and Sandeep Singh, currently down in 22nd. I'm not sure. I think he might have taken a pit stop, actually. An early pit stop for Sandeep Singh in the Pescara. We saw he wasn't having much luck off the start line initially, wasn't making up a huge amount of positions at the beginning of this race. So he's decided to roll the dice on strategy, I think, and go in a different direction. We'll have to confirm that. Oh, whoa! That's Dower Tapper, who just lost it completely there in the hairpin. And that is going to be a gift to both Deegan Fairclough and his ex-teammate Amari Watson, now driving for 86E Racing, of course. Both of those drivers up and ahead of Dower Tapper, who I guess his tyres just maybe got a little bit too hot in the battle with Pascal Schmidt. He'd been going at it very close behind Pascal Schmidt for a couple of laps, and then just losing control of the car, able to regain control well enough to avoid anything worse, but still losing a few positions there and a couple of seconds. Not good news for Dower Tapper. Here then once again, Deegan Fairclough. And now, the demise of Dower Tapper falling out of this battle does mean that Fairclough is going to have DRS on Pascal Schmidt and not have to worry about the car ahead also having DRS. So Fairclough is no longer stuck in a DRS train. He's part of a DRS train, but he's not stuck in it. He could get the advantage here over Pascal Schmidt and maybe make the move on the German driver. And if he does that, then I think Michael Ayers is going to be watching in his rearview mirrors a little bit, because it seems to me that Deegan Fairclough, one of the fastest drivers here today, maybe only rivaled by Matteo Kiersmakers, who's no longer in the race. So perhaps he's just the single fastest driver remaining in the field. Yet to see, of course, because he hasn't been in clean air at any point during this race so far. But we know that Deegan Fairclough, he's a feisty driver. He likes to make aggressive moves. He likes to make up his positions. And he's doing a fantastic job of that so far. Really serving him well in this race for V12 Crossfire. You can see how much more road he's using there on the exit of Estoril. As the DRS is now open, we'll see how much Fairclough is gaining. He's getting closer, but he's not close enough on this occasion to the rear wing of that TTF racing car. Pascal Schmidt holding on to fourth. His impressive qualifying, still looking pretty good. He is constantly driving a bit of a train of cars in this race. Here's Giuseppe Saracino battling for the final points-paying position alongside Pascal Polenz, who now is in the only remaining Razor GP car. Saracino could use some points. HG Esports Blue Bolt could well use some points as well. And he'd like to find his way past Poland, but having to settle down behind the German for at least a little bit longer. Something that Deegan Fairclough is all too familiar with, as he is also settling down behind the German for the time being. Lap 13 of 56. It's Tom Stevens leading the way from Thomas Harvey second. Then you have a bit of a gap down to Michael Ayers in third. Then it's Schmidt, Fairclough, Watson. That's the battle you see on your screens right now. They are occupying fourth, fifth, and sixth positions. And look how close Deegan Fairclough is this time through Estoril. If he can just get a decent exit, it's going to be a bought and paid for move with the DRS. You'd have to imagine he does lose a little bit of time there on the exit of Estoril, but on the run down towards the Adelaide hairpin, will he get there in time? Not really. He sends it up the inside anyway, and Pascal Schmidt very courteously giving the space to the car on his inside. Bit of a dive bomb there from Deegan Fairclough, but it didn't pay off for him. Well done by Pascal Schmidt to notice the car coming in hot up the inside, to avoid it, and to also simultaneously hold on to the position. Dylan Platt is currently the driver in 10th position. I'll talk about him in a moment, because Polenz and Saracino are going at it once again, and this time Giuseppe Saracino has been able to get ahead of Polenz. Two drivers driving for teams which are the same as their nationalities. So you got Giuseppe Saracino driving for the Italian HG Esports Blue Bolt team, and Pascal Polenz driving for the German Razor GP outfit. But it is the Italians that come out on top on this occasion. Out at the front, still the gap remaining pretty constant between Tom Stevens and Thomas Harvey. 0.4 of a second. If anything, as time has gone on, they've tended to get a bit closer. Thomas Harvey looking like he maybe has a tiny bit more speed than Tom Stevens at this stage of the race. And interestingly, both of these drivers are starting to fall back into the clutches of Michael Ayers. Only starting to do so, but there is some movement in that direction. Here is Dylan Platt, who I was going to talk about a moment ago, before we're interrupted by the battle between Saracino and Polenz. He is right behind Matthew Williams. Williams not held up by anyone right now. He's in clean air in 9th position. And Dylan Platt holding pace with the championship leader without too much trouble, by the look of things, in that TR Blue Voss car. I know that the TR Blue Voss team did get a pretty significant update package here at this race, and it seems to be working out really, really well for them. Thomas Harvey, of course, currently sitting in 2nd position and looking like he's a bit faster, if anything, than the HM Engineering in the lead. Dylan Platt holding pace with our championship leader, Matthew Williams, as now Tom Stevens dives into the pit lane. So our race leader has decided to pull the trigger first, lest he be undercut by the other drivers. We noticed he was losing a little bit of time to the drivers behind. Michael Ayers was closing in, and now he has a whole fresh set of tires ready to do battle once again. Critically coming out just ahead there of the PLS of Dabrowski, and that was essential. He could not afford to get mired in that battle. He has about a 3-second gap to pump in some fast laps with those fresh medium tires. Meanwhile, it's Pascal Schmidt and Deegan Fairclough, and this time Fairclough has been able to get the move done. He moves up yet another position into what is currently 3rd. Oh, Although, I think that's him off. I think that's him off and out of the race. I don't know if he cut the curb too hard through... I don't know what's happened there, but Deegan Fairclough, he's out of the race, and I wonder if he broke the car through the Nürburgring chicane. I noticed he took the curbs pretty hard, but I don't know if it's going to cause that level of damage or if he just lost the car somehow. But Deegan Fairclough, another driver to fall out of this race. He DNFs. There's been a fair few other DNFs as well. I believe Sandeep Singh is now out of this race, Luke Maguire as well. Meanwhile, Michael Ayres and Pascal Schmidt both into the pit lane now. That's Schmidt, who was in what was effectively fourth, and Ayres, who was in what was effectively third. We'll see where Michael Ayres is going to come out relative now to Tom Stevens, well behind, in fact. So protecting from the undercuts, protecting from the overcuts, indeed, working well here for Tom Stevens. And he puts two cars, the two PLS cars, between himself and Michael Ayres. Michael trying to make that one fewer PLS car here as he sends it up the inside towards the Adelaide hairpin. And I think he should have this move easily managed with his fresh medium tyres compared to the aging softs on the Poles car. Still though, one car and a decent-sized gap between himself and Tom Stevens, and that's not necessarily what Michael Ayres would have wanted. Evidently, he held onto his tyres better in that last stint, so that's going to be something to watch out for in the remainder of this race. Thomas Harvey still going longer, though, so he's decided that if he can't get the undercut then on the man he was challenging for the race lead, Tom Stevens, he's going to try and do the opposite. He's going to go for an overcut. Maybe not exactly for an overcut, but he does just set the fastest lap of the race there, so an overcut might well be on the cards for the TR Blue Voss driver. But even if he can't pull the overcut, he's going to have fresher tyres in this next stint, and that could make a big difference. Dower Tapper and Amari Watson, the two next drivers into the pit lane. Tom Stevens responds to Thomas Harvey's fastest lap by going 0.4 of a second faster. Overcut, no chance here. Tom Stevens comfortably the fastest car out there on circuit at the moment. As there you see Matthias Dabrowski losing the position to Michael Ayres, who finds himself about 3.5 seconds now behind, more like 4 seconds actually, behind Tom Stevens. So he's got a bit more of a gap now to contend with than he would have liked. Pascal Schmidt, after his pit stop, he's come out down in 10th. Amari Watson is 11th. Dower Tapper 13th. These drivers all on fresh tyres, so expect to see them making some progress in the coming laps. And almost all of the guys who started on the soft tyres have now pitted. We still have Thomas Harvey out there in the lead, of course, and he's still setting pretty competitive lap times, you'd have to say. Dino Paolini still on the softs in second, but he's 11.5 seconds away from Thomas Harvey, who now dives into the pit lane. So he has, on the beginning of lap 19, had enough of those soft tyres. He wants a fresh set of mediums, you'd have to imagine. There you see the yellow wall medium tyres. And we'll see where he's going to come out of the pits relative to the rest of the field. Here's Tom Stevens. And interestingly enough, he's right behind the other TR Blue Voss. That's Dylan Platt there. And this could be an absolute gift for Thomas Harvey. If his teammate's able to just hold up Tom Stevens a couple more corners, Thomas Harvey is going to be right there with him once again, and with a fair few laps extra freshness on those tyres. And you can see Dylan Platt still has DRS because he is still right behind Matthew Williams, who has taken over the lead of this race, but seems like he just doesn't have the pace of some of the other drivers here. Williams and Platt both yet to pit. Then you have Stevens, Harvey and Ayres, followed by Frank Hamming, who is also yet to pit in this race, and Paigo Poom, for whom the same does apply. But out at the front, it is now Williams leading the way from Platt. There you see the battle for first, and you can also see the longer that Williams and Platt keep Stevens and Harvey behind, the better news it is for Michael Ayres in that 8.6 racing car, as he is now closing in on these drivers every time the interval updates. He's getting a little bit closer. Now we see Tom Stevens wanting to make a move, but he had to back out of it. He took a sensible pill there in towards turn 15, and as a result of that, Thomas Harvey is really smelling blood in the water now. This is going to be very, very difficult for Tom Stevens to navigate this situation. You can see just how physically intimidating it is to be there between the two TR Blue Voss cars, but Dylan Platt makes a bit of a mistake, and Tom Stevens might have the opportunity. Platt gets a decent run out of Estoril, but he has given an opportunity for the erstwhile race leader Tom Stevens to send his nose up the inside of Adelaide, and Dylan Platt goes well wide, so he is well out of the way now, losing the position both to Stevens and to Thomas Harvey, and that leaves them with just Matthew Williams ahead of them before they're back in the first 2 positions in this race. However, with the fact that Williams is still ahead of Tom Stevens, Michael Ayres is now right here with this train of cars. You can see he's within DRS range of Dylan Platt, and if Platt continues to make little mistakes like that, it's not going to be difficult for Michael Ayres to get past him as well. Harvey would have liked it maybe if Platt could hold up Stevens just a couple laps longer, maybe trying to give him an opportunity if Stevens went for a move that didn't pay off. But nevertheless, he's going to be feeling pretty happy with the position he's in. He's got the fresher tyres and he has the pace. He's right there, hasn't lost any time to Tom Stevens as a result of the pit stops. In fact, if anything, he's arguably been closer than he has been before. Had a bit of a tough run through the final chicane there. You can see Stevens trying to set up the move on Williams through Estoril. He'll have the DRS wide open. Now the Stack's going to be trying to defend the position. There you see Williams thinking about going defensive, but he doesn't fight it too hard. And there you'll see both Stevens and Harvey up the inside. Williams knowing that that's not his fight to take and just letting both of those drivers through. You can see how close, though, Thomas Harvey was to Tom Stevens there. Not going to be able to go side by side through the Nürburgring chicane. And you might have to wait for next time round at Adelaide. But you have to imagine that Tom Stevens going to be sweating bullets in that cockpit right now. Very nervy situation indeed for the HM engineering driver. Meanwhile, here we have Giuseppe Saracino in 14th. He was able to dispatch Pascal Polenz a while ago, and now he has Hygo Poom ahead of him, but Hygo Poom is on fresh, soft tyres, so I don't think Saracino is going to be getting much over and above what Poom is going to be offering as this stint will continue. Poom just getting those tyres up to temperature a little bit there, I believe, but should be driving away from the HG Esports Blue Bolt car. As Dylan Platt now does pit, so does Frank Hamming. They are both 2 of the drivers remaining on their medium tyres that they started this race on. I think most others have now come into the pit lane. Matthew Williams still going very, very long on his stint. Here's Michael Ayres looking for a move on Matthew Williams there, his potential championship rival. And you can see that Williams a little bit less eager to give the position away than he was with Harvey and Stevens, but he just does not have the tyre grip to continue the battle, and Michael Ayres will manage to get past him. But it's telling there, I think, that Matthew Williams realised that he wanted to fight that one a little bit harder than he did against the 2 race leaders. Meanwhile, there's more battling going on. That's Dylan Platt sending it up the inside there of Hygo Poom, as they're both on fresh tyres. Dylan Platt onto another set of mediums, interestingly enough, so he's not going to go for his soft tyre stint just yet. Different philosophy then between himself and Hygo Poom. Frank Hamming ahead of them also on fresh soft tyres, having started on those mediums. 2 drivers who have benefited quite a lot in the pit stop phase of this race are Matthias Zubinski and Matthias Dabrowski. Both of them are well ahead of where they were before the pit stop started, so the PLS cars are going to be pretty happy with the way the race has gone. Matthew Williams now pits. He was running in 4th position, but of course it was a false 4th more than anything else. We'll see. I think that's Dino Paolini you just saw in the background there. Yep, indeed it was. So he's going to come out behind both of the PLS cars, but ahead of the Royal Blue Racing of Dino Paolini, who is still just there in 10th position, having started, I believe, inside the top 10. He's lost a fair few positions from where he started, especially as he's gained some as well from others DNFing from this race. 20 cars remaining in this race, but James Lambert is now a lap down on the rest of the field. And you can see here once again, Michael Ayres, of course he lost some of that time in the battle with Matthew Williams, but he is not right there with Stevens and Harvey. He was part of the same DRS train, but because Stevens and Harvey were further ahead, because they were able to dispatch the other cars more efficiently and with more ease than Michael Ayres has been able to do, they have been able to rebuild that gap, and now we basically have the same sort of situation as we had in the opening stint of this race. The big difference, though, is that there are differentials in tyre life, and Thomas Harvey is the one with the best tyres of these 3 cars. He pitted latest, and as a result, his tyres are freshest. You can see that he has a big advantage as he tries to send it all the way around the outside of Tom Stevens, goes for a cutback move, And Stevens blocks him off in the traction zone. Nice driving from the race leader, but it might not be over yet, as here we go into Nürburgring, and no, Harvey not quite close enough on that occasion. Tom Stevens, good driving to prevent Harvey from getting the run he would have liked on the exit of Adelaide. So we have a bit of a gap now forming between the top 6 runners. Steven, Harvey, Ayres, Schmidt, Watson and Tapper. They're all relatively close to one another. Bit of a gap also between Ayres and Schmidt, but then behind Tapper you have almost 10 seconds to the 2 poles, Zubinski and Dubrovsky in 7th and 8th, with Williams in close attendance with them, and then Paolini just a tiny bit further away as well. It's interesting, Zubinski, Dubrovsky, they always seem to be so unbelievably evenly matched. They're both teammates driving for the same team, and in the championship they are 24th and 25th. They each have 13 points to their name. Pretty much every race I see them, they're pretty much within a couple of positions of one another, and in this race they've hardly left each other's side. It's really weird, to be honest, just how closely matched this pair of teammates is, but it makes for quite a fun teammate battle in my opinion. But speaking of fun battles and speaking of drivers who seem closely matched, Tom Stevens and Thomas Harvey still going at it here at the front. Lap 25 of 57, just under halfway in this race so far. And Michael Ayres is now closing in once again on these 2 drivers. He has some pace to speak of right now, and he is using it to regain the time that he lost battling with Matthew Williams a few laps ago. Looking at the bottom end of the point scoring position, Pascal Polenz is currently there in 15th with that 1 point score to his name. Giuseppe Saracino up ahead of him. A big gap between Saracino and Polenz, and interestingly, Jack Mayer not been able to make the progress you would usually expect from him in this race. Qualifying wasn't great for Mayer, and he did find himself right the way at the back after the start of this race, so I'm sure that has a big part to play in the misfortunes he's experienced so far in this race. But in general, Jack Mayer has been a driver to have a rough qualifying and then recover remarkably well in the race. Not really been that way for him so far in this one, and Matthew Williams isn't having the same sort of star-studded performance he usually does. He's still in a fairly solid position, but he is on soft tyres, stuck behind the 2 Polish drivers, Zubinski and Dubrovsky, and they, of course, have DRS on one another. They are teammates. They can use the fact that they are a DRS train to help themselves defend from the onslaught of Matthew Williams. And if Williams isn't able to clear those drivers, he's going to waste the freshness and the usefulness of this set of soft tyres that he's elected for the second stint of this race. So he was able to set the fastest opening sector of the race just now. But he's going to be right up there with Dubrovsky. He's not going to be able to run at his own pace unless he can find a way past the PLS cars. And as a result, that's going to just be really, really bad news for him. Here's Jack Mayer, who I was talking about just a minute ago. He's with Pascal Polenz there and looking to try and make his way past, but off-road there. Cannot make the move on this occasion. Jack Mayer, of course, on those soft tyres with Pascal Polenz on mediums. I wouldn't be able to hazard a guess at the relative age between these 2 sets. Both drivers have pitted in this race, that much is for sure. We're back now with Frank Hamming, who is troubling the rear end of the Royal Blue Racing of Dino Paolini. Dino currently, of course, the only Royal Blue Racing car remaining in this race after Jukka-Pekka Lalu fell out of the race earlier on in an incident with Ivan Leonov. And after a promising qualifying, Royal Blue going to be relatively disappointed with the way things have gone. Not true for Frank Hamming's team, the HM Engineering cars, as here is Matthew Williams, and I said this was important for him to do, and he's managed to do it. Lovely stuff there from Matthew Williams. He's been able to divide and conquer up against the PLS cars, and he now finds himself into 8th. Got a touch of clean air as well to work with. And he'll be able to coast right up to the rear wing of Zubinski and then probably get past. And if he does get past Matthias Zubinski, he's going to be in a wealth of clear air up ahead. Meanwhile, further behind, Frank Hamming was able to dispatch Dino Paolini. We cut ahead to the battle. But if you looked in the background, you would have been able to see the HM of Frank Hamming just about getting past Dino Paolini and relegating the Royal Blue Racing car into 11th position. Now, Dylan Platt is going to be the next one to have a go at Dino Paolini in this race. Michael Ayres' charge at the front has somewhat faltered. He's stagnating now a little bit around the 2-second mark compared to Tom Stevens out at the very front of this race. You can see this is where most of the battling is going on right now. A lot of drivers very, very close to one another, pretty much from Mateusz Dabrowski downwards. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, all pretty much lockstep here. And you can see it is 12th and 11th that are getting the closest right now. Dylan Platt looking to try and take advantage of an ailing Dino Paolini at this stage of the race. And I wonder when we're going to start to see the second pit stops coming through for these drivers. Probably going to be a little while yet, but some of them who are frustrated with their situations might well feel the need to do something or other different. And I wonder maybe if Thomas Harvey is going to be one of those drivers. I mean, it's a tough call right now for Thomas Harvey because he has made the decision to go for a fresher set of tyres by going longer on the first stint. He's got a fresher set of tyres in this stint, but he's not been able to make that work for him so far. He got up to the rear wing of Tom Stevens, was able to have a couple of nibbles at the HM car, but since then he's not been able to challenge really for that race lead. And as a result, I wonder if he's starting to lose any effect that the extra freshness of his tyres would bring him. He could go for another undercut, but it's an overcut, sorry, but it seems to be the undercut is just significantly more powerful here. So I wonder if we're going to see a bit of a reversal with Thomas Harvey. Maybe we'll see the TR Blue Voss car coming in a little bit earlier than Tom Stevens compared to last time. And then the shoe will be on the other foot. It would be Thomas Harvey with the potential to try and undercut the rest of the field, or particularly Tom Stevens, of course, at the front. Of the drivers remaining in this race, only 4 currently wear soft tyres on their cars. Those are Matthew Williams, Frank Hamming, Hygo Poom, and Jack Mayer. They are in 8th, 10th, 13th, and 15th, respectively. And there is actually a 5th, that is Mike Bell, who I somehow completely missed. He is in 17th for Neptune Sim Racing. He's also got that red walled soft tyre on his car. Everyone else running those mediums. No hard tyres to be seen here, as is so often the case, as the mediums seem to be standing up to a fair amount of punishment here at Magny-Cours. Over halfway now in the race, and the leaders have looked pretty much the same ever since the second lap here. Tom Stevens leads from Thomas Harvey and Michael Ayres. Ever since Ayres got past Schmidt in the opening few laps, that's been the case. It's been them as the front 3. We saw a charge from Deegan Fairclough, who looked to try and involve himself in that battle, but he had to DNF from the race ultimately. Here's Matthew Williams, finally able to get past Jubinski. Took a little while longer than I would have expected to get past the second PLS car further behind. 2 blue cars battling. It's going to be Dylan Platt fighting with Dino Paolini, and Paolini chops off his nose there into the Nürburgring chicane. Brave driving from both drivers. Well defended, you have to say, from the German. Dino Paolini holding Dylan Platt at arm's reach. And now Hygo Poom might well be a little bit interested as a result of that. Poom on the soft tyres does have a bit of an advantage perhaps in compound compared to the 2 ahead. But at this stage of the stint, maybe Poom's tyres will be starting to wear out a little bit faster than the mediums on the cars ahead. 1.2 seconds the gap between Ayres and Stevens right now, and I believe he's basically well within DRS range of Thomas Harvey out at the front. Here's Frank Hamming in 10th. He got past Dino Paolini a couple of laps ago, and now he's looking to try and get past Dabrowski. Looks like there's been a change over 4th position. Meanwhile, I believe Watson's just got past Schmidt, and now here comes Hamming to have a go at Dabrowski. Dabrowski breaks later on the inside. Hamming will go for a cutback, try and get the inside line on the exit, but you can see how much more slippery it is there on the inside of the track on the exit of Adelaide. And Hamming had to go into opposite lock to avoid spinning out the car there under traction, so he will not take 9th position this time around. But yeah, Amari Watson being able to get past Pascal Schmidt for 4th and 5th positions. Now we'll see what Amari Watson can do in that 8.6 racing car. It's now an 8.634 in this race, and you've got to imagine that'll please them pretty well. Clean air for Omari Watson, but the trouble is he has a pretty hefty margin to make up between himself and his teammates up ahead, let alone the 2 Toms at the very front of this race. But nevertheless, we can see what Omari Watson can do, and maybe he can consider going for a bit of an undercut as well. Dylan Platt actually managed the fastest first sector of the race, as we see there his teammate Thomas Harvey getting pretty close once again to Tom Stevens. These drivers have been remarkably close throughout this stint of racing. And Michael Ayres, you can see sometimes in the back of the shot, waiting, watching like a hawk. He knows that this could well be. It's a golden opportunity for his third win of the season and to gain ground not only on Matthew Williams, but on Alessandro Quintai as well, who of course is not racing here today. Frank Hamming has been able to get past Matthias Dabrowski. He finds himself now into 9th. The Dutch driver driving for HM Engineering. He's on for one of his better results of the season. Not exactly sure what his best result so far is this season. He's only managed 10 points, so finishing up in 9th would be a pretty big deal for Frank. That would definitely suit him well. And this is definitely a good race compared to what he's been able to manage so far this season. In fact, I can tell you that his last 2 races were his joint best results, and they were both 12th place finishes. So if he can bring this one home in something like 9th, somewhere inside the top 10, that could be really, really good news for Frank Hamming's season, which seems to be on a bit of an upturn ever since a couple of races ago, and now liking at this French Grand Prix as well. Murray Watson is closing down the race leaders. As soon as I say that, he actually lost several tenths of a second, but you get the idea. He was closing down the race leaders, as you can see the battle continues to be hectic here. And it seems that wherever Dabrowski goes, he brings cars battling behind him here. It just seems like Dabrowski doesn't quite have the pace on this set of medium tyres, and a lot of other cars are trying to find their way past him, and he's causing a bit of a mobile chicane, a bit of a roadblock. Causing a bit of battling going on between the rest of the drivers. Mobile chicane, a bit harsh actually, to be fair. Dabrowski is currently in 10th, which is a perfectly respectable position to be in. But I mean in terms of forcing the other cars to, battle with one another, to be a bit compromised in the lines they'd be looking to take on the racing track. Seems like the battle for the points, barring any disasters, is pretty much done already. Mike Bell well behind Jack Mayer there. 20 seconds separate those 2 drivers, with Jack Mayer in 15th in the last possible point scoring position. James Lambert is now out of this race as well. He DNF'd a couple of laps ago. Here's Thomas Harvey once again, really, really close to Tom Stevens. You can be as close as you like. If you cross the line second, it's still the same amount of points that you lose out on compared to the man who's going to win this race. So Thomas Harvey needs to be more than close. He needs to be alongside in the braking zone to Adelaide. That has got to be the golden opportunity here. Potentially you can try and think about a move into Lycée 15, but it's never going to be easy there. And as you can see here, Thomas Harvey not able to do it on this occasion. So yeah, it's always just going to be one of those things where you've got to wait for turn 5, the Adelaide hairpin, always the classic overtaking opportunity. We've seen, of course, many fantastic overtakes there over the years, as that was Tom Stevens with a major moment there through the final chicane, and as a result, that's going to be Thomas Harvey really, really hoping for an opportunity here. You can see he's trying to take advantage, but he took a tighter line through Estoril. Another moment there for Stevens under traction on the exit of Estoril, but it seems like Thomas Harvey's tight line just hasn't paid off for him. Stevens goes defensive nice and early. He knows that the battle may well be joined between himself and his rival Thomas Harvey. Harvey going for that switchback, but he can't quite get the traction of the HM Engineering car. And once again, he's frustrated there in second. That could have been a big opportunity. It should have been a big opportunity, but he just couldn't quite get alongside enough. As a result, Tom Stevens still leads the way from Thomas Harvey and Michael Ayres. Murray Watson is now getting closer. 5 seconds separates him and his teammate. It was more like 7 seconds a couple of laps ago. So interesting to see if Murray Watson can join the fracas here at the front of this race. Douwe Tapper is currently being held up by Pascal Schmidt there in 5th and 6th, and maybe even Tapper could think about trying to get involved if the race was to go long enough. And Michael Ayres pits, so he is going to be the first one then to pull the trigger for our second round of pit stops. The 86E Racing team getting those tyres changed. And Ayres is going to be onto a set of mediums for the final stint of this race. No, sorry, a set of softs for the final stint of this race. As you can see, the red walls there on those tyres. And he looks to have found himself a pretty healthy margin of clean air. That's ahead of Matthias Jubinski, but behind Matthew Williams. And Ayres will not want to have to pass Matthew Williams again. Last time, Williams did not make it easy for him, as here is Douwe Tapper And I said he was stuck behind Pascal Schmidt. Well, no longer. Dawatapa moves himself up into 4th, and he'll look to try and chase down Amari Watson, hang on to the coattails of the Englishman in his attempts to get into a conversation for the podium positions. With Michael Ayres having now pit, it puts Thomas Harvey and Tom Stevens in a tough situation, particularly Thomas Harvey here, because he might feel that if he was in free air with his slightly fresher tyres, he could go a couple of laps longer than Ayres and not risk getting undercut. But at the moment, he's not driving at his own pace. He's driving at Tom Stevens' pace. And Tom Stevens now does pit, so he responds to the undercut. And once again, just like in the first stint, we are seeing Thomas Harvey going the longest of the front 3 drivers. Stevens surely going to be going for a set of soft tyres for the final 20 laps of this race. And here is Michael Ayres. You'll see him there. Oh, and that is Stevens on the pit exit. It's going to be really, really close between the 2 drivers as they run down towards Adelaide. But it's mediums for Tom Stevens. And it's not the first position he would have wanted either. He's down now behind Michael Ayres, who's pulled off an undercut. And if he's managed to undercut Stevens, surely he's got it on Harvey as well. But it's not over yet, because here comes Stevens. They're going to try and get around the outside of the Adelaide chicane, or the Adelaide hairpin, I should say. But he wasn't able to do that in the end. Dino Paolini battling with Matthias Dabrowski still behind. But out ahead, it was very, very close stuff there from Ayres and Stevens. But Michael Ayres might have just pulled the pit stop that will win him this race. Ooh, as Paolini now loses out to Dylan Platt. Platt just taking advantage of Paolini understeering there. I believe that was through the 180, turn 9. And that is Dylan Platt now up ahead of him as they go through Imola here. Thomas Harvey sets the fastest lap of the race, but he did this last time. And then Tom Stevens, it was on that occasion, just went significantly faster. However, Michael Ayres and Tom Stevens have battled on this last lap. So that is going to help Thomas Harvey as well. If he can continue to set really fast laps here with his aged set of medium tyres, he might have a chance, but he doesn't have much of a chance because Michael Ayres, his last lap was a 1:12.3, 5/10 of a second faster than Thomas Harvey. Harvey is going to find himself coming up behind both Ayres and Stevens once again. As here you can see Michael Ayres already onto the rear wing of Matthew Williams. Williams does go defensive once again. But you can see there's a huge differential between their tyres. And Ayres makes the move. He's now in 5th. Williams down to 6th with Stevens behind him. And now Michael Ayres, surely this race is under his control now. The only issue is that towards the end of this race, he's going to be on soft tyres, whereas Tom Stevens at least is going to be on mediums. So he is going to have worse tyres than Stevens at the end, but if he can build enough of a gap to him now, while he has the tyre advantage, it's going to be very, very hard for Stevens to overhaul that gap. Murray Watson now pitting then from 2nd position in this race. We'll see where he comes out. I would have expected him to try and pull an undercut on the rest of the drivers up ahead of him, but he's not done so. He will get the undercut on Thomas Harvey, who is still out there on circuit. Thomas Harvey, by the way, went faster again that lap. He is really, really trying his hardest there on that set of tyres. But again, it was still a couple of tenths away as Tom Stevens here now looking at Matthew Williams, who is going to not defend this. Once again, he goes to the outside, lets Stevens through to try and chase down Michael Ayres. Canny driving here from Matthew Williams. Wise stuff. Oh, and you can see Amari Watson has come out of the pit lane directly in the middle of a huge gaggle of traffic. That's a disaster for 860 Racing and Amari Watson. He would have loved to be pumping in the fastest lap times he possibly could right now with fresh, soft tyres, just looking to take him to the end of this race. But he is stuck behind both Matthias Dabrowski and Dylan Platt. And then Frank Hamming isn't too much further up the road either, so a lot of traffic for Amari Watson to contend with before he gets to the end of this race. Harvey stays out yet again. Many more laps on this set of tyres Thomas Harvey's going here. Dawatapa, Pascal Schmidt, both into the pit lane behind. So they're not going to be able to hold up Michael Ayres either, as he regains 2nd position. Here you see Tapper in the pit lane. He is in something of a battle with Amari Watson. It was a couple of seconds behind Watson, I believe, before the pit phase started. And indeed, he is going to come out behind Amari Watson. So Watson's traffic not enough to gain Dawatapa that position, as he is now directly behind Watson, though. and a little bit closer than he was before. In fact, no, Hygo Poom has been able to separate those two drivers. So scratch that. Tapper has to get past Hygo Poom before he's going to be able to get along with Amari Watson. Paolini, Hamming, Mayer, several other drivers all pitting on that lap. And Rosso as well pitting down in 19th. As it looks like Watson has just been able to get past Dylan Platt for 6th and 7th positions. Thomas Harvey staying out once again. His last lap, though, was a 1:13.1. And that was actually faster than Matthew Williams, faster, or almost as fast as Tom Stevens, but not as fast as Mike Ayres. And as a result, you can see he now does have to throw in the towel and head into the pit lane. He's relying on this set of soft tyres that he's going on to now. He needs these to have a big difference to Mike Ayres' tyres at the end of this race. You can see he's going to come out in 3rd position here with Williams also pitting behind. And he's got a bit of a margin to make up between himself and Tom Stevens. He does have a tyre. He had a tyre advantage in the last stint, but this stint, his tyre advantage is both age and also compound. So hopefully for Thomas Harvey's sake, he will be able to get past Tom Stevens this time. He spent so much of the race looking at the rear wing of that HM Engineering car. Dabrowski, Poom, Saracino all pitting, following the lead of both Harvey and Williams, who also pit on this lap. Matthew Williams currently in 8th position on this damage limitation race for him. That's decent points. That's not a bad result for Matthew Williams, considering he started down in 14th on the grid. You've got to imagine he'd have been hoping for more going into the weekend as a whole. Dino Paolini right there with Matthias Dabrowski. These two have been side by side, lock and step, for quite a while now. There you can see how many stops everyone has made. Jack Mayer actually has made 3 stops in this race, down in 15th. I believe he had to pit very, very early on for some kind of damage or something along those lines. Dylan Platt is the only driver who has only pitted once alongside Sean Jones. Sean Jones is well out of contention now for any point scoring positions. And there is Platt then into the pit lane. You can see it on the right hand side there. See our Blue Voss car, white, blue and blue in the pit lane. And it's not going to be white or blue for the tyres. It's going to be red instead, of course, for those soft tyres that he is now strapping on to try and take a charge at the rest of the field at the end of this race. For their final stint, only 2 drivers in the points have elected for medium tyres. And then one of those, Tom Stevens, who was in the lead of this race. And he has made a big gamble, both by allowing Michael Ayres to undercut him, but also by going on to a set of mediums when pretty much everyone else besides Matthias Szubinski thinks that soft tyres are the way to go here. Harvey, meanwhile, is getting closer to Tom Stevens. He's not exactly eaten up the gap, but he is there and thereabouts with the HM car right now. If he does get past Stevens, though, he's still got 2 seconds worth to catch up on the race leader, Michael Ayres, who is in a very, very solid position indeed in this race right now, because his tyres, they're not going to be dissimilar to those of Thomas Harvey. A few laps age difference, but both soft tyres, and they should be making it to the end for both of those drivers without too much difficulty. Thomas Harvey just set the fastest lap of the race with a 1:12.199, and now you can see how fast he is as he looks to finally make a move on Tom Stevens. This has been his the toughest challenge for him all race long, but he's finally been able to do it. His white hair has been hunted in the form of Tom Stevens, and he makes his way then up into 2nd. Tom Stevens down into 3rd after looking like he was in control of this race for both the 1st and 2nd stints. The HM Engineering driver finds himself down into 3rd instead. To be fair, though, to Tom Stevens, this is his first race of the season, so I think he'd be happy with the 3rd position. You can go for the wins, of course. That would be an excellent story if he was able to take the win, but leading more than half the race and potentially coming home in 3rd, I think you'd take that on your first race here in this season of Superleague Lights, as Thomas Harvey goes faster once again into the 1:12.16s now. The last one being in the 1:12.19s. There's Dino Paolini. I believe that's lapping Zan Rosso there in the HG Esports Blue Bolt car. He's still pent up behind Matthias Dabrowski right now. Dabrowski holding up Paolini and Poom means that Frank Hamming has a pretty solid hold on 9th position. And in fact, Hamming looks like he's closing down Matthias Szubinski, who is, of course, on those medium tyres. So Hamming has that advantage right now. Should be a little bit faster at this stage of the race compared to Zubinski, and might be able to make his best result of the season one position better if he can get past the pole and up into 8th. Since Thomas Harvey got past Tom Stevens, he's been going faster than Michael Ayres. He's closing him down right now, and there's plenty of laps left to go of racing here in this one. 44 of 57 is what we are currently on, and 0.3 of a second, maybe more like 0.2 of a second, is the gap that Thomas Harvey has over and above Michael Ayres in the middle sector. You can see now Thomas Harvey into the 1:11s. He's just going faster and faster right now. That was a full 0.4 faster than anything he's done in this race. He was faster by at least 0.2 in every single sector compared to Michael Ayres. Michael wants to hold on to that first position. He needs it because he's a serious championship contender if he can bring home this win and have a few more fortunate results in the remainder of the season. But the trouble is, Thomas Harvey knows that he's not won a race so far this season. He's going to want this race so badly, and he's got the fresher tyres. He went a different way, a brave way on strategy, and we'll see. It looks to be paying off for him pretty well so far, but we did see him get caught up behind Tom Stevens in that second stint, even when he had the better tyres. So he's going to have to be careful that he doesn't use all the juice out of these tyres getting to Michael Ayres. He needs to make sure he has enough to get past him once he gets there. Watson and Tapper haven't been able to make too much progress since they got past Pascal Schmidt. They're just currently occupying 4th and 5th positions without too much concern, but not challenging Stevens up ahead, even though Stevens on those medium tyres does not have a huge amount of pace right now. He is going slower than both Watson and Tapper at this stage of the race, but it's not by enough, I don't think, for those drivers to really close it. Once again, we cut back to the battle between Frank Hamming and Matthias Zubinski in 8th and 9th. Frank Hamming looking to try and make that 8th place his still as he takes a wider line to Estoril. That should get him a bit of a better exit here on the run down towards the Adelaide hairpin, and maybe an opportunity coming with that better exit. We will see. He's close into the braking zone. He will send it up the inside, and the Polish driver forced to give him the space. Frank Hamming looks to have got that move done as he gets the better traction on the exit as well. Good driving from Frank Hamming to take advantage of the tyre differential and claim 8th position as his own. Not much chance for Hamming to get anything more than that, though. 7.5 seconds between himself and Matthew Williams, who himself has a further 3 seconds up ahead to Pascal Schmidt. He's going a little bit faster than the German right now, but I don't think Williams can try and steal 6th position before this race comes to an end. But you never know. He might be able to put on a bit of a spurt of speed. He might be holding on to his tyres a little bit at this phase of the race. Interestingly enough, Thomas Harvey just set the first sector slower than Michael Ayres that I've seen for a little while. He started to get into the dirty air zone a bit now with the race leader. He was faster in the 1st and 3rd sectors. He was a little bit off in the middle sector, but overall he was slightly faster on the lap as a whole. The laps are starting to even out between the two of them, but that's mainly, of course, because Harvey now is in that dirty air zone. He can't really drive any faster than Ayres until he gets past him. Here's Dylan Platt, Thomas Harvey's teammate, who is battling there and looking to try and get past the TTF racing car of Heigo Poom. And that move is done. Nicely done there by Dylan Platt. He finds himself up into 12th. Here once again we see Thomas Harvey close behind the rear wing of Michael Ayres with 10 laps remaining in the race as they cross the line there. It's going to be close between the two of them. You can see there's a car up ahead. I believe that's Mike Bell in the Neptune just up ahead of them. He is the last driver, the furthest back driver that's not yet lapped so far in this race, as Thomas Harvey thinks about a move around the outside there. You can see Mike Bell getting well out of the way. He does not want to be part of the squabble for this race lead. And on that occasion, Thomas Harvey not able to make much of an imprint on Michael Ayres. But you can see the opportunity was there. Trouble is, for Harvey, the opportunity has been there in the past between him and Tom Stevens, and he wasn't able to take it on many of those occasions. So he's got to be careful. He needs to make sure that when he does get an opportunity, he seizes it with both hands. He needs to make the move decisive and to leave Michael Ayres no option but to let him through. Ayres, a canny racer, well used to battling with the best of them here in Superleague Lights. Thomas Harvey will be very, very aware of that fact, you'd have to imagine. On that last lap around, Thomas Harvey was about a tenth slower than Michael Ayres, but of course the lap times, you can kind of throw them out of the window now between these two drivers. It's not really going to be any difference between their lap times as long as Thomas Harvey is right there with Michael Ayres. So it's just all about the gap between the two of them. That's where you've got to focus on, and you can see it coming down here in the DRS zone. But on this occasion, Thomas Harvey not close enough to contemplate making a move. Pascal Pol ends up ahead of them as the next car that they will lap. He gets out of the way very nicely in. Just briefly looking down the rest of the order now, Zubinski's decision to go on with medium tyres not really serving him any better than Tom Stevens' one, because both of those drivers have fallen down. They're losing positions. Zubinski lost out to Frank Hamming a few laps ago, and now he has his teammate Dabrowski right there with him. And with Dabrowski come Dino Paolini, Dylan Platt, Haigo Poom. So that's a fair few drivers that will be biting at Matthias's heels as we get towards the final stages of this race. Here is Thomas Harvey right there once again. So close right now. He gets a better exit out of the final chicane. It's going to leave him really, really close in the wake through Estoril. 2/10 of a second right now between the two of them. If he gets a good exit through Estoril, as he doesn't, he adds a moment there in the middle of the corner. And you could see that was Thomas Harvey realizing he had a bit of an opportunity there and trying to push the car as hard as he could and over its limits ultimately there through Estoril. And as a result, he squanders his opportunity to make a move into Adelaide. Watson and Tapper pretty close to each other as well in 4th and 5th. They're still closing in on Tom Stevens, but only by something like 4 or 5 tenths of a second per lap. It might be enough for them to get within touching distance of him just as the checkered flag falls. But you've got to imagine their tyres are only going to get slower in comparison to Tom Stevens as this race goes on, because Stevens, of course, on those medium tyres. In the last few laps, you've got to imagine those are going to be the tyres to be on, but it's just not getting to that point quite yet. Michael Ayres as well, something he's got to worry about here. He was the first driver to pit onto these soft tyres. He pitted with 20 laps left to go onto that set of soft tyres. Now, 20 laps on softs is doable, easily doable, but it's not the fastest ever. They're not going to be very good nick at the end of that stint. And Thomas Harvey will be aware of exactly when Michael Ayres pits and how much of an advantage in terms of age of the tyres he has over the race leader. And now he might have the advantage right here and now as he looks to try and seize it around the outside of Adelaide. He doesn't go for the cutback. He holds it around the outside instead. Ayres giving him the space there. Lovely, respectful racing between the two of them. And they're still going to be side by side. Neither of them going to give up through the Nürburgring chicane. And Thomas Harvey had nowhere left to go but onto the green stuff off track. And Michael Ayres holding on to that position. Fascinating battling between the two of them. Harvey found he just could not find the space to get past the race leader. Further back, Matthias Dabrowski has dispatched Matthias Zubinski over 9th and 10th position. So a bit of a swap there between the PLS cars. Now I wonder if maybe we'll see Dabrowski driving a little bit within himself here, just keeping Zubinski within DRS range, and therefore making it more difficult for Paolini, Platt and Poom to get past Zubinski, because that could advantage PLS in the long run. And I don't think Dabrowski is going to be able to close in on Frank Hamming before the end of this race. There's not much of a difference between their tyres. So I think the right call here is for Dabrowski to just drive within himself a little bit slower than he could be going to make sure that Zubinski is going to stick in that DRS zone and therefore have a shield, a force field, compared to the cars behind. Back up at the front, it looks like they're getting pretty close again, Ayres and Harvey. But it's just staying there. Oh, that's a car off. That's Dylan Platt. Dylan Platt's off the road. He holds onto it somehow, getting it back out of the gravel trap there. That was an impressive recovery from Dylan Platt, but he does lose out to Dino Paolini and Haigo Poom. And there's Jack Mayer now getting pretty close behind him as well. I believe that's the car we see Oh, never mind. That's not Jack Mayer just behind him there. My mistake. That is, I believe, one of the HG Esport Blue Bolt cars. So, yeah, that's not going to be such an issue there as it could have been for Dylan Platt. And didn't lose as much time as he could have done, but still, pretty dramatic moment there for the TR Blue Bolt car. 5 laps remain in this race. Michael Ayres still leads the way from Thomas Harvey. Tom Stevens needs to start closing in now if he's going to have any hope, and I don't think that's really going to be an opportunity for him. Here's Matthew Williams, though. He's looking to join battle with Pascal Schmidt. Trouble is for him, Pascal Schmidt is also in the midst of a furore with Dower Tapper. Murray Watson has been able to gap this little train of cars here. Matthew Williams, if he could gain just a couple more positions, going from 7th to 5th, that's quite a few points that he would like to have extra, especially when he knows that Michael Ayres is in the lead of this race. He does have a very hefty championship margin, almost 100 points over Michael Ayres, I should say. I don't want to oversell the idea that Ayres is a championship contender, because it's going to be very, very difficult for him, considering he only joined partway through the season. But nevertheless, you've got to make sure, if you're looking to become a champion, you've got to take the points where you can get them. And especially when Alessandro Quintai isn't here and when Sandeep Singh is out of the race, you want to make sure that you're taking full advantage of the demise of the Pescaras. And so Williams would love to find his way past Pascal Schmidt at least, and then maybe Dower Tapper as well. Meanwhile, though, back up at the front once again. It's just over 0.2 of a second, and Thomas Harvey looks to have got a bit of a smoother run there through Estoril. Maybe now the opportunity is there. It's within 0.4 of a second in the DRS zone. That's somewhat the golden mark. And now Thomas Harvey, will he go to the outside? Yes, he will. He's forced to go to the outside in the end. Michael Ayres braking later in the 86E racing car, and it's a drag race on the exit of Adelaide, and this time it looks like a drag race, which Thomas Harvey has won. He finds himself ahead now of Michael Ayres, and Thomas Harvey, who was brave with the strategy. He stayed out when all those around him lost their tyres. He remains out there in the race lead once again, taking it away from Michael Ayres. And with that, it seems to me that we're very likely to have our new race winner here in this race. So far this season, only Matthew Williams, Alessandro Quintai and Michael Ayres have won races. Thomas Harvey could be the one to add his name to that illustrious list. He now is already gapping Ayres. Look at that, 1.1 seconds already. Thomas Harvey doing a fantastic job in this race, making the freshness of those tyres work. He couldn't do it against Tom Stevens earlier, but he's managed it no problem now. Here's Pascal Schmidt, though, in the TTF Racing car. He's on for a great result for TTF Racing, who currently sit 10th in the championship. Schmidt himself only down in 17th. However, if he manages a 6th place finish, I believe that would be his best of the season, and it would certainly go a long way to helping him out in his own personal championship charge. Of course, that's not his best of the season. He did get a podium back in Canada, but he hasn't scored points all that often, and it would be comfortably his second best point scoring result of the season, as he is now ahead of Dower Tapper there. So that's Schmidt in 5th, Dower Tapper 6th, and Williams 7th. And with position changes going on, Williams will be looking to try and take advantage. Dower Tapper seems like he's the slowest of these cars right now in that Zederick. And you can see Matthew Williams showing his nose in the braking zone there, making sure that Dower Tapper realizes he's got something he needs to think about as we enter the final couple of corners of this lap. That's turn 14 there. Williams close behind. Oh, he sends it. Oh, he didn't really want to, but he brakes so much later that he almost had to there. And just about avoiding making contact with the rear end there of Dower Tapper. Matthew Williams, a bit of a heart-and-mouth moment for him. He could have thrown away all his hard work. It's been a graft for him in this race. You can see he is up 7 positions from where he started. Frank Hamming behind him up 10. Congratulations to him. He's driven a fantastic race. Sean Jones picks up a penalty elsewhere. Ayres and Watson both up 6 positions. Both of those E86E racing cars looking better in the race than they did in qualifying. But Thomas Harvey up the 1 position. He only had 1 position to gain, and he's managed to do it so far. And he's managed to do it comfortably at the end. Look at the gap now between himself and Ayres there in second. As here comes Matthew Williams, and that was always going to lose space there. There was never going to be enough space in the corner for the stacks. Once again, he's just trying to put Douatapa off. He knows that he needs to get past Douatapa right now if he wants to try and challenge Pascal Schmidt. Pascal Schmidt, surely pretty safe now in 5th position. Williams would still love to claim 6th position if he possibly can. Let's see the rundown now to 15. Lise, oh, again, you can see how much later he is on the brakes there compared to Douatapa. I wonder if Tapa has some braking issues, because he does seem to be braking very, very early compared to Williams into that particular corner. But it's going to be Adelaide. That's going to be the corner where he needs to brake as late as he possibly can. You can see now Matthew Williams close behind him through Estoril, running a little bit wide, using a bit more of the track than the car ahead, and as a result actually losing a bit of time before the DRS gets opened. He'll gain that time back right now, but he lost enough that he couldn't eat back into it quickly enough to make a move there, as we're on to the final lap of this race already. Here's Tom Stevens, who's actually getting closer to Michael Ayres now, and his medium tyres are coming online just a fraction too late in this race for him to do much about it. You can see a couple laps longer, and Tom Stevens would have been able to get Michael Ayres. Ayres seems to really be struggling there in second, but someone who is not struggling at all is Thomas Harvey. He didn't exactly have it all his own way this race, but he kept at it, kept working, and he takes his first win of the season for TR Blue-Voss. Fantastic stuff from Thomas Harvey. Behind him there, you can see Ayres just about claiming second from Tom Stevens. Then you've got Watson just about holding off Pascal Schmidt at the end of this race. Schmidt had a bit of a charge on there in the final couple of corners, but he couldn't quite get past Amari Watson. Douatapa going to be managing 6th, Williams 7th, Frank Hamming with his season best finish of 8th. Hats off to him. Fantastic drive on the day. Dabrowski-Zubinski taking the PLSs home to 9th and 10th. Dino Paolini and Hygo Poom in 11th and 12th. There are Platt and Jack Mayer not quite getting Platt before the line. Platt 13th, Mayer 14th. And Pascal Polenz, who's a lap down, is going to score that final point scoring position, because Giuseppe Saracino, with a few laps left to go only, has DNF'd from this race. So only 18 finishes at the end, and Saracino will be not able to score those points for the HG Esports Blue Bolt team. There you see the order. Here it is. Thomas Harvey taking the race win. Fantastic, fantastic drive from him. Michael Ayres did everything he could in the race, but couldn't quite get up there in the end. His tyres gave out on him with a few laps left to go. Tom Stevens led much of the race, comes home in 3rd for number 33. Amari Watson 4th, Pascal Schmidt 5th, Douatapa 6th. Those 3 cars very evenly matched as the race went on. Matthew Williams with a good recovery drive after qualifying 14th. He finds himself into 7th. Frank Hamming 8th, Matthias Dabrowski and Zubinski line astern in 9th and 10th for PLS. Dino Paolini, he'll be disappointed with the race. Qualifying was good, but down in 11th come the checkered flag. Hygo Poom with a good result for the Estonian in 12th. Dylan Platt 13th after he almost lost the car with only a few laps left to go. Jack Mayer down in 14th. He had an incident on the opening lap, and Pascal Polenz finished the lap down in 15th. And then you have Mike Bell, Sean Jones and Stefano Zanrosso, the only drivers to make the checkered flag and not to score points. They are 16th, 17th and 18th. Giuseppe Saracino looked like he might score points for a long time, but he DNF'd with a few laps left to go. James Lambert also fell out of this race, but he never really had the pace to compete. Someone who did have the pace to compete was Deegan Fairclough. He DNFs and will not be classified, but he could well have been a challenger for maybe even the race win here today. Sandeep Singh, very disappointing weekend for him. Or I say weekend, it is a Tuesday, but race weekend, it's a term. He's down in 22nd, but with a DNF. Luke Maguire DNFing for Revo, Adam Rainey, Yanis Volborn, Ilan Leonov, Jukka-Pekka Lalu, and our pole sitter and another potential race winner, Matteo Kiersmakers, whose race started before it could even truly begin. And of course, when I say his race started before it could truly begin, what I mean is his race ended before it could truly begin. Sorry about that one. It's been a long commentating session here on my own. I hope I've been able to keep you guys entertained. With that, I believe we're going to be going to try and get a few drivers in here for interviews at the end of this race. Let's see, as I believe I can start to drag a couple of drivers now into the channel. So let me just do that 1 second here. Hello, I believe I should have Thomas Harvey here, is that correct?
Yeah.
So, hi, Thomas. First of all, congratulations. First win of the season. How does it feel?
Long time coming. I think certain scenario people like Quintine not being there and a couple of the usual fast runners having issues. I have no idea what happened to Kid Makers. That was a shame for him. I didn't touch him or anything. So yeah, that was really random, but nearly caught me off guard. And then Tom got fast, and then from there it was pretty much just a struggle to. It was really difficult to pass. I knew I had an extra, couple tenths in me per lap, but it was just with the dirty air, and I just wasn't quite getting good enough runs. And when he was making mistakes, I was just not capitalizing. And yeah, he defended really well, to be fair to him. Same with Michael. But I basically just prayed on having the fresher tires being able to get me through. I just stuck to the strategy, and yeah, paid off.
You mentioned sticking to the strategy, having those fresher tires. That was always the plan, I guess, to pit later and to have those fresher tires. But after it didn't really work out for you in the second stint of the race, when you went onto mediums, you had fresher mediums than Tom Stevens, but you weren't able to get past. Did it make you doubt going for the same call again for that final stint? Were you maybe encouraged by Michael Ayres pitting as early as he did? What was going through your mind at that point?
Well, I mean, for sure I had doubts about mine, but I knew that when I did pit, I'd be on the softer combat tires as well. So, I had a feeling my tire would be a bit better than his. I didn't know how much, but when he pitted lap 14, that was a bit of a relief because I knew then he wouldn't be able to go on the softy end realistically. If he was having trouble doing those laps with the softs, he wouldn't have been able to do, extend the medium. So, yeah, I think it was just a case of being patient. There were moments where I could have made it easier and got through, but I just made mistakes when the opportunities came. But yeah, in the end, the strategy pulled off. So yeah, really happy with it.
Yeah, absolutely, as you should be, certainly. And thinking about then the rest of the season, next few races, we've got Belgium, Italy, then Singapore. Any of those tracks standing out to you as something you're looking forward to?
I think I'll have good pace going forward. I think obviously we had some issues with the upgrades on the car this season, but we've resolved them, and hopefully now for the rest of the season we'll be able to develop at the same rate. Hopefully, that'll be yet to see, but I'm fairly confident we'll be amongst it car performance wise from now on. So I think it's just gonna be track dependent. I got better in the setup area as well. So there's positives going forward, and I know it's going to be more competitive probably in other races where some of the big hitters are prepared and have got more pace and are there. But this win, it was good to get off the chest because I had a lot of bad luck streak, and up until Germany where it still clicked, and then now the car, we had a lot more performance here, and it showed. So yeah, really happy.
Absolutely. Congratulations once again on the race win, and thank you very much for joining me for the interview.
Thank you.
So next, I believe I'll be bringing in our second place finisher, just about in the end, and that is Michael Ayres. Michael, hello.
Hello.
Hello, hi. So, I mean, first of all, are you disappointed with that race? Is second good enough for your standards?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say yes, considering where we started. I think it was like P8 or qualified P9. I think yes, overall yes. I can't really point anything out that was wrong. Maybe I posted a little bit too much at the end, but I think if I didn't, then it probably would have just, that move would have happened much earlier, I think.
And speaking of the end, we're going to just talk about the final pit stops, because obviously you made a bold decision there. You went onto the softs with about 20 laps left to go. It seemed to me that those softs really started to fall away right at the end. Were you surprised also when you saw Tom Stevens going for a set of medium tires for that final stint as well?
So yeah, I think we planned to stop 3 laps later than we actually did. And I think on that lap, It might have been due to them two fighting, or I don't exactly know what it was, but I know that I was like 2 seconds down on my delta. So I literally just kind of decided to just go aggressive. You know, it's worked out so far. Let's just do it, drop both of them, and then hopefully we have straight line speed to defend. I didn't actually know that Tom went for the mediums at the end. I can understand why, because I think he was struggling a lot on tire wear. It was quite noticeable how kind of quick they were going in the first stint. So I kind of realised that that probably would have happened.
Indeed. So, yeah, no, and of course, while you didn't manage to get the win, the decision did still pay off for you. Of course, you were, but you did able to get that second position, so you gained one position at least from the aggressive strategy calls. I'm going to ask you a question that I asked Thomas Harvey as well. The next few races, Belgium, Italy, Singapore, the next 3 races in particular, are there any tracks you're really looking forward to, and where do you see your season going from here?
I'm looking forward to Singapore, even though I don't think that our car will be that good there. I mean, it was the second worst here, but I do believe that we will have probably one of the best in the upcoming races. So maybe Belgium, Monza would be kind of good for our car. But personally, I'm looking forward to Singapore. And for the rest of the season, yeah, I just want to score points. You know, top 5 finishes, hopefully. Yeah, just want to finish points.
Absolutely, and well, we'll see. We'll see. Any more wins?
Well, we'll see.
All right. That's fair. Thank you very much for joining me, and congratulations on the podium, at least.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, so one last driver to speak to here, and that is going to be our 3rd place finisher, Tom Stevens. So I'll bring him in. Tom, hello.
Hello.
Hi. So 3rd place. Congratulations. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with that. I wasn't really expecting much going into this race, as I was just standing in for Wopke, but yeah, that went well.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you know, if with a standard performance like this, are we expecting to see any more races from you in the remainder of the season, or is this just a one-off?
I think it all depends whether Frank or Wopke want to do more races in the future, but I'll always be around to step in if needed.
Fair enough. And thinking about the race itself, of course, you were able to lead the vast majority of the race in the end. Well, the majority of the race at the very least. Were you worried initially, if you cast your mind back to the first pit stop phase? You obviously pitted a little bit earlier than the other drivers around you. It seemed like you were struggling a little bit with tyre wear compared to the rest of them. Were you a bit worried when you noticed that Thomas Harvey was going longer on that first stint?
Yeah, well, I kind of had my sights set on pitting around laps 17 or 18, that sort of area. But I did not expect to end up in the lead after the first lap. And then there was a huge amount of pressure from in behind. So I just burnt through the tyres way too much. And then I tried doing the undercut instead, which successfully worked. But later on, right at the end of the race, I just had to go for another set of mediums, and I didn't really have the pace at all.
Was the call for mediums just that you felt you wouldn't have been able to get it to the end on a set of soft tyres from there?
Yeah, I would have dropped off a lot. Yeah, there was no way I was going to make it to the end on soft, so it's sort of just like a safety thing. I mean, maybe I could have, but yeah, I just went for the mediums. But at least that's a lesson learned, and then in a future round, I need to put more effort into making sure the tyre wear doesn't go through the roof.
Well, indeed, but you know, it's a lesson learned, but a lesson learned in a race where you still managed to get a podium. A lesson learned and a podium earned. So congratulations! It really was a very, very impressive race from your side.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the interview as well.
No problem.
So with that, I believe we will wrap up our show for the day. I'd like to thank you all very, very much for watching and being patient with me struggling on my own here in the commentary box. And yeah, thank you guys all very, very much for watching. Next race, of course, will be in 2 weeks' time, and that will be the Belgian Grand Prix at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, a classic circuit, and you absolutely do not want to miss that one. We'll see you there.
Bye.